Performing Arts at the New School. And I'm so excited to welcome both our in-person and our online and watching at other times audience to hear an incredible conversation today. I'll introduce our two guests in a moment, but after introducing you more broadly to what today's a part of, which is our series, Socially Conscious Artistry Faculty Leadership, in which we here at the College of Performing Arts highlight some of the incredible socially conscious work happening across our faculty. Coming up later in this series, this is the last of our sessions for this semester. Next semester, we're going to have drama faculty member Jean Taylor speaking about international teaching artistry work that she's been a part of. And then later in the semester, the incredible composer Wang Ro will be speaking to us about his work. Today, I am so excited to introduce to you our College of Performing Arts faculty member, musicologist Frank J. Oteri, in conversation with Dr. Waheedullah Saghar, who is the former head of the music department at the University of Kabul, and we'll be talking about Afghanistan's endangered musical traditions. So without further ado, I want to turn things over to Dr. Saghar and Frank Oteri. Welcome. So good to have you.
Thank you. Thank you, Steve. A place where I'd like to begin this, I want to mix some very, very positive energy. It's fantastic that we have Dr. Saghar with us here this year as part of the University and Exile program at the New School. He's one of two people who were with us this year, the 7th and 8th people from Afghanistan who are sharing their knowledge, their artistry, with us in this extremely challenging time in Afghanistan. It's hard to imagine we're sitting here in this beautiful concert venue at the New School. It's part of a conservatory where people are studying music and learning about all different kinds of music, creating their own music, interpreting other people's music. And we take this as a given that we have the opportunity to do this. And we're very lucky because in some parts of the world, like in Afghanistan now, the very act of studying music is a crime. It's illegal, and you can be punished severely for it. And Dr. Saghar ran the music department at Kabul University, which is an extraordinary university that has a 90-year history and has established this music department there. And now Kabul University reopened again after the Taliban resumed control, but they outlawed the music department. The music department is gone. But obviously, it wasn't always this way. And Afghanistan has been this incredible crossroads of so many different cultures, so many different people, because it's between all of these different empires, the Empire of India, the Empire of Persia, and then Iran, the Arabic Empire, Russia, all of these places. And all of those peoples are part of the fabric of Afghanistan. And Afghanistan's music is this multicultural tapestry that I think a lot of people here in the United States are not even aware of how many rich traditions there are there and have been there for centuries. So I guess the question I want to ask you to begin this whole thing is to introduce Afghani music to all of us, to our audience. What could you say about it to define it? It's so broad.
First of all, I'm so thankful the New School and members, and especially you and Mr. Stephen, to having me here. Regarding Afghanistan music, as you said, yeah, of course, Afghanistan is a multicultural country. But in ancient time, we had a kind of Khorasani music, which in Afghanistan, the concept of muqam, the principle of muqam, which was prevalent in Afghanistan. But during King Amir Sher Ali Khan in the last of 18th century, a wave of musicians came from India by invitation of King. They migrate to Afghanistan, and from that time, Hindustani classical music came to Afghanistan and propagated in all Afghanistan. So, but regarding folk music, still in Afghanistan, in different parts, in the north and south and east of Afghanistan, the people has their own culture, their musical culture. But regarding classical music, right now in Afghanistan, the people use that kind of music which we call Hindustani classical music. But if we are going to in ancient times, so from that time, as you said, like in Afghanistan was Indian empires, and from Afghanistan and Persian went some empires to India. So from that time there was a mixed culture. So somehow Afghan people was familiar with this Hindustani classical music, like the melody, the raga. So that's why the Afghan people very easily to adopt this music in Afghanistan. Yeah.
So I'm curious, when you were growing up, and Afghanistan has seen so many wars, different times. I mean, this is not a new occurrence, what's happening now. Around the time you were growing up, there was a war between the Soviet Union and people in Afghanistan fighting them. But of course, music was still present in that society. I'm wondering, when you were growing up, what was your first exposure to music? What did you hear? What was around you?
Actually, when communism revolution happened in Afghanistan, the Russian forces came to Afghanistan. So most musicians, they believe that this period was like a gold period of music in Afghanistan. It means they provide money music academy for people regarding learning music, performances, music festivals. And they invite many musicians from outside of Afghanistan, from West and from India, from South to came Afghanistan, and they teaching properly music to Afghan people. When of course when I born, so my parents told me that my born and still just on the time of that Russians came to Afghanistan, so still in Afghanistan start war. But when I grew up, so I remember that I was in third and fifth class in school, which I met some classes in school. They try to involve the music in the curriculum of schools to learn the students. But unfortunately, when the Islamic revolution happened in Afghanistan, so from that time, civil war started in Afghanistan, and as a other part of art and culture, we lost music, and music activity was totally banned in Afghanistan. But when they allow to musicians keep musical activity in Afghanistan, but lost a lot of musicians, talented musicians that time was left Afghanistan. They were migrated in European countries and in Pakistan. Yeah.
Now, as a child, though, before all of that, hearing music, was there music over the radio? Were there live performances? What was the audience like for these things?
Actually, that time we had just only one national TV and national radio. So they had proper program for music, they had different audience, for pop music audience, light music, classical music. So, for example, I remember every week in the after 9 o'clock in the night, they had a program for like classical music. So the classical music lover every week they were waiting for that program to just watch and listen the classical music, Afghani classical music, and also through radio, the renowned musician of Afghanistan, Ustad Muhammad Hussain Sarahang, he had a teaching program through radio. Every 15 days, that program was broadcasted through radio, and music lover, music students, they was just behind of radio and was listening to the teaching process. But as I remember, somehow my interest started through music on that time. Just I was listening to that, especially classical music, how through the musicians perform, how people enjoy classical music. Yeah. So.
And of course, when we say classical music, we're referring to Indian classical music, specifically North Indian, the Hindustani tradition as it spread into Afghanistan. So the Russians, when they were there, did not bring Tchaikovsky to Afghanistan so much, or Shostakovich, or any of the Russian music.
Actually, Russians, they just transfer some Western classical music principles to Afghanistan. And also some from Central Asia, some Tajik musicians, they came to Afghanistan and they performed that style which was prevalent in Russia. But I think the interest of Afghanistan people was more through this Hindustani melody, and on that short time they couldn't, somehow people convinced to adopt this Russian musical culture. So still, we just in school, there was a music school which some teachers was coming from Russia and what they did teach, and even they invite a student in Russia embassy. They provide some classes for people, but somehow I don't know why the people doesn't take interest to the Russian music. Yeah.
Interesting. One of the things that we always like to say here, people who study music, is that music is somehow the universal language. It can cut through barriers, and I think of a country like Afghanistan that has so many different kinds of people, different languages, different traditions, different heritages, different religions in some cases. But music, since it doesn't have words often, unless it's vocal music, but even a vocal line with a melody, you can appreciate a melody if you don't understand the language, that it can somehow cut through these barriers and bring people together. Which is why it's so shocking that this thing that brings people together would be something that would be a crime at this point, that would be outlawed. But before we go there, you growing up, you were hearing this music, you were fascinated by it. What made you decide to devote your life to music?
Actually, honestly, when I started to learn music and to play music, that time was I didn't have any idea to be a professional musician. So it was just kind of like enjoying and playing music. So, but when I decide to go university for a professional subject. And when I passed the national exam, so I got admission in law college. But when that time we were in Mazar Sharif, so when Taliban came to Mazar Sharif, again civil war started in Mazar Sharif, so then we migrated to Pakistan, and after Pakistan, when I was in Pakistan, so in 2021 when US forces entered to Kabul. So that time I decided to be a professional musician because when I was in Pakistan, so I met a lot of musicians, and the interest of music like somehow grew in my side, and I realized that without music I couldn't live. So I had to be a professional musician. So I decided, and then I went to Kabul and joined Faculty of Fine Art to be a professional musician. Yeah.
And this was 2001. Yeah.
2001, I just go to Kabul. Then in 2003, I could join music department as a student. Yeah.
Wow, wow, fantastic. But then you went on to pursue a PhD in music.
When I complete my bachelor, so my professors, they encourage me and request me to join university as an assistant professor, because that time our department was so young and they needed to especially in as a vocalist, some from new young generations. So then I joined music department as a assistant professor in 2008. When in 2010 I got a scholarship and I went to India. I completed my MA in India. Then again I got a scholarship for my PhD. Then I completed my PhD in India in 2017, and in the end of 2017 I returned to Kabul and again rejoined music department as associate professor. And in 2018 I take the responsibility as a head of department. Yeah.
Wow, wow. To back up a little bit, to give people some background of Kabul University, as I mentioned at the onset, it's been in existence for over 90 years. So it'll be a century in a few years and has a long history. And as of 1950, it was co-ed. Both men and women could study at Kabul University. And then the music department was founded, and there were all these other departments in the sciences. It is a major institution for learning in that part of the world, and dare I say, in the entire world. And when the Taliban took over the first time, obviously they shut everything down, but then everything reopened in 2001 after they were overthrown. And then when they took power again a few years ago, the university was shut down again. But they said this time, because of course they made all of these promises, they said, well, we will reopen the university. No need to worry, anybody. We're going to reopen everything. And they did. In February of 2022, they reopened the university, but got rid of the music department. That was the one department they shut down completely. Even at that point, they were still letting women go to the university, but women and men had to study at different times of the day. The men in the morning, the women in the evening, and then finally women were outlawed completely from the university. So first they went for music, then they went after the women. It's interesting that music somehow, this thing that brings people together, is so dangerous because it can make people want to be free.
Actually, of course, in the first time when Taliban was in power in Afghanistan, that time also music was banned and prohibited in Afghanistan. But then the next time when they came in power, so some peoples, they would believe it, as you said, that okay, this time they will allow music, but with some censor. And also from government we got some messages that the Taliban will come here and they will allow music, but the music should be according our cultural value like this. And but when they entered to Kabul, I remember in 15th of August, so of course we were just kind of underground. We didn't go to university. But after 1 week, we just got a letter, a formal letter through which was issued through University and Higher Education Ministry that musical activities in Afghanistan totally banned, and the music department should be closed. Yeah, so we got some picture from our colleague and workers from faculty, which they sent us. They already sealed the department door, and from that time, so we just avoid to going university, and of course, Taliban start to searching houses. Because of they was search some political peoples, and regarding that they if they find somewhere musical instruments, so they punish people and they broken the musical instruments. Yeah, it was happening in Afghanistan.
A little bit of what was happening before that, this glorious renaissance, this period when you were at the university and the time that you were running the department there. It would be interesting for everybody here to know the kinds of musical activities that were happening at the university, and if there were other programs that people could be part of that did music. I know I was in Estonia about 10 years ago for the International Music Council's World Forum on Music, which is a UNESCO sponsored event, and there was a speaker there, a very inspirational speaker, Ahmed Sarmast, who had founded this organization for Afghani musicians to play, to learn instruments for younger people, pre-university level, like elementary school and high school students. And they formed an orchestra, and that orchestra even did a worldwide tour and came to New York City in 2014 and performed at Carnegie Hall. It was this very, very exciting time. It's so shocking that that's 10 years ago, and what a world of difference in 10 years. I'm wondering about the kind of pipeline that was existing for young musicians who may be trained as part of the organization that Ahmed Sarmast ran, and then came to you and came to Kabul University to develop their skills further. What kind of collaborations were happening?
Yeah, actually in Afghanistan, we had two official academic center, like Institute, ANIM, and Kabul University Music Department. So the way we would work to each other. So when their students complete their studies in school, so they were through a national exam, they got admission in our department, and most of their teacher was trained by our department and music department. But of course, when this tragedy happened in Afghanistan, so school is also closed and music department also closed. So, but as you said, I'm also wondering about the future of students. They spend their life like more than 15 years. They spend their life in musical activity. Some of them still are in Afghanistan. But yeah, somehow Dr. Sarmast could manage to evacuate some of them to Portugal. And some of our students, we could manage to evacuate them from like Germany, outside of Afghanistan. But some of them are still in Afghanistan. Yeah.
Wow. And Dr. Sarmast, he escaped, but not without injury. He was the victim of a horrible terrorist attack, a suicide bombing. He at first was completely deaf, lost his hearing, and then doctors worked a miracle and they got some hearing back in one ear, but it's not the same. He can't do what he used to do. It's horrific.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I remember that time I was in India. That some explosion happened in Istiqlal High School. There was a theater performance, and the interesting and funny is that the performing was regarding that blasting, and they were acting that when some blast happened, how do people take injury, how people die. So they were just acting, and the reality blast happened in the hall. So yeah, as Dr. Sarmas and some other students, they take very danger like injury in Afghanistan.
Wow. Now, in terms of the people, you mentioned that there are some people still in Afghanistan who did this course of study at the university. I'm curious, how many music students were there? How many people, how many members of the faculty? Were there men and women? How many altogether?
Actually, since 2022, when department officially start activity, so after 4 years, every year we graduated more than 70 students in Afghanistan.
It's 2002.
Yeah. So 2002, yeah. We had many students which they already graduate from music department, and some of them was working in culture ministry. Some of them was active as a performer in Afghanistan. We have a total database all of them with us. So, but the student which when we left Afghanistan, which they were enrolled in a music department, they were already our students. So it is around 250 students which was in Afghanistan. We had 3-part classes, 3 session, morning classes till 12 o'clock, then after 12 o'clock till 4 o'clock. And we had a shift night, which in Persian we call Shabana. The students which and during the day they was working they had some other subjects, but they were interested to learn music too. So this classes was a night shift for them. So yeah, many students still are in Afghanistan. So we can say that around 200 students are in Afghanistan, yeah.
Wow. And in terms of things they studied, we're going to share a video with all of you a little later in this presentation that will show the music department when it was active. And I noticed watching this video that there were so many they were studying traditional Indian instruments. Here in the West, everybody is probably familiar through the worldwide legacy of people like Ravi Shankar. Everybody knows the sitar around the world. So, the sitar exists in Afghanistan as well. The sarod, the sarangi, the bowed instrument. In fact, just last week, the world lost one of the world's greatest sarangi masters, Ram Narayan, who is in his 90s. But all of those instruments were taught, the tabla, but also Western instruments. I saw guitars, I saw pianos, I saw some brass instruments. So people could study all of these different kinds of music there.
Fortunately, we design our curriculum, which we involved in both kind of music, like Western classical music and Eastern classical music. So we had the student which they was involved in learning to piano, guitar, and some brass instruments. So they were violin. The process and teaching was according to Western classical music. So they was learning harmony, solfege, notations, everything was according to Western classical music. But the traditional instruments like robab, sitar, and tabla, and vocal music was according to Hindustani classical music. So it was always I was searching. I find my department as a unique department, which was in the same time we were teaching both major music in our department. Western classical music and Eastern classical music.
Any kind of collaborations between the different kinds of instruments, cultures?
Yeah, of course, we had a orchestra, which we direct to from both branch students together, perform, together work. And also, the student who was belong to Western classical music, they had to learn some theory from Eastern classical music too, like the raga principles, the melodies. And the students who was like belong to Eastern classical music, they had to learn about the notations, how to note. So it was like when they was graduate from a department, they were able to work together, like fusion music, like a big orchestra. So yeah, it was.
Fantastic. Absolutely fantastic, and shocking that all of that is gone. An important question to ask, though, now that all of these musicians, people with this training, have spread around the world, how do we keep these traditions alive in exile? Here we are in New York City, and we're very lucky to have you with us this year. Hopefully, by having you with us, you can impart this knowledge to all of us, to the students here, and that we can continue this tradition and develop it and grow it into other things also, to collaborate with other kinds of music.
Actually, when Taliban came to power, so like some of musicians, they said that okay, then music will be die in Afghanistan, or maybe Afghan musical culture will be die, will maybe finish forever. But I believe that till one musician or maybe one musical Afghan music lover is alive, so Afghanistan music will be alive. Yeah, nobody can stop it. Yeah. As we had experience when civil war started in Afghanistan past 40 and 30 years ago, so totally in Afghanistan was empty from musicians. All musicians migrated outside of Afghanistan, but they were still active. They working. Yeah, but regarding serious and academic music, which in the past 20 years we had like graduate academic musicians from department. So some of them, like in Exile, they are active. They could find their own way because regarding to their talent and their subject. So as my friend said that Mila John, he is in USA. He did here his degree and he is active here. And other musicians, students, they are active in Exile. But I'm still trying with my colleague to somehow we create a center like academic in outside of Afghanistan, maybe in Europe, in West, in USA, to like somehow provide like teaching or learning process for our students which they couldn't complete their degree because they are in the middle, they are not complete their degree, so they need to for example, they spend their more than 6 and 5 years into learning music, but they are still doesn't have any degree and certificate. So we are working and it will be support to keep alive our musical heritage, especially regarding academic music of Afghanistan.
And of course, one of the biggest challenges is with musical instruments. And, you know, in a way, I mean, you are lucky as a musician because your instrument is inside you. You're a vocalist. So you could get out of Afghanistan with your instrument intact. But other people who played larger instruments that you could not hide. I heard so many horror stories of people having to destroy their own instruments for fear that if they were caught with the instrument, they would be thrown in jail.
Yeah, as I said that musicians in Afghanistan, with the entry of Taliban, they was afraid and everybody destroyed their own musicians. For example, I had some special instruments which I bought from India and bring it to Afghanistan. So I didn't have had any option. So I break it my instruments and I just put in garbage because I was afraid to when they search in my house and they find musical instruments. So because in Taliban there was different groups, which some of them was like very harsh and they doesn't was follow the centered power, so they was like independent. They just punish musicians. They so yeah. So right now in Afghanistan, if a musician have musical instruments, so their musical instrument will be underground. They put it just bearing in the yeah. It is not possible to keep in that house like openly. Yeah.
Wow.
So I remember it is very sad the repetition of history in Afghanistan when. I joined music department. So one day I remember my professor asked some students to come here and help. When we go there, so he just requests to remove some dust, and we bring some musical instrument underground to up, which they musician was underground, and that civil war in Afghanistan was started. So our professor was remember that there is some musical instruments. Wow. So the sad point is when we left Afghanistan with our colleague, we again do that work which our professor did on that time. We again put our instruments and some special instruments underground it and bear it to be safe for next generation of Afghanistan.
Well, now that there are so many musicians abroad, I imagine a lot of people escaped, and they had to escape without their instruments. And hopefully it's possible to acquire new instruments or to build new instruments. Are there people who escaped Afghanistan who are instrument builders, who can teach other people around the world to build these instruments so that we will have them somewhere?
As I know, regarding Afghani traditional musical instruments, which rabab, we had a rabab maker in Afghanistan, and I think he could manage to migrate Iran. I think he is working in Iran. It is good news, which he still make rabab, and one or another musical. Technician, he also migrated to Pakistan, I think. But I don't know he is active there or not. But in Iran, there is a rabab maker, which he could manage to migrate Iran, and he is still working in the area.
Yeah, one instrument I'm particularly curious about is the tambura. People who know Hindustani classical music know that the tambura is typically a drone instrument and is played in the background. A lead melody instrument plays, and then you have the percussion, the tabla accompanying. But there's this drone. But in Afghanistan, the tambura is also used as a melody instrument. So there's a whole different technique of tambura.
Actually, I don't think so, because tambura is not possible to use it for as a melody. It's just yeah, it is. Yeah, but in Afghanistan, because some musicians, which especially they use it in some video in background. So they doesn't have idea to how to use it, some junior musicians. Otherwise, it is not just to playing melody in tambura. As you said, it's just in the background, like counterbass. I just gave some just two note in tonic and fifth, just playing, and yeah.
Interesting, because I heard there were recordings that were done in Afghanistan in the late 1960s. So before you were born. And when I was too small to pay attention to anything, but an American ethnomusicologist went there and recorded people playing tambura and doing it was not classical music; it was folk music, tradition, but they were playing it like a melody instrument. I thought, wow, that is so unusual.
Yeah, of course. I never listened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. But these kinds of instruments, I mean, they're huge. They're big. That's the kind of thing that you would not be able to escape with.
Of course, yeah. But as I said, I had very beautiful tampura in Afghanistan, but I had to breaking. Yeah, so I break the tampura and just put it in garbage.
It's absolutely heartbreaking, but thankfully, you are here and you're intact, and I would very much like to open this up maybe to some questions from the audience, and then I would love to share the video that you have for us so that we could see this music department in action. But before that, I would love to open this up to questions from the audience. If somebody has a question, we need to use this microphone so that people can hear it online. But yeah. It's hard to see with these bright lights here.
Dr. Saghar, could you please tell me where in India you studied music, and what was your experience translating your previous musical knowledge from what you knew in Afghanistan to the Indian classical system? Because I've had a lot of issues with that, translating Western and Indian classical music.
Actually, before going Afghanistan, I was somehow familiar with Hindustani classical music, because in Afghanistan the same thing is, but of course some some mispronunciation of some musical term in Afghanistan. When I went to India, so for some time I was confused about some forms of classical music was in Afghanistan different name, in India was in different. But after just one semester, it was easy for me. So my MA was in Lucknow. Yeah, I was for 2 years in Lucknow. Then in Raipur, Chhattisgarh, my PhD was there. Yeah. You're welcome.
I'm curious how there came to be such a connection between India and Afghanistan, rather than Pakistan, which of course uses a lot of the same instruments, and you have the Qawwali tradition, and it's also an Islamic country. Was this was Afghanistan put in the middle of the geopolitical conflict between Pakistan and India and had to kind of choose a side, or how did it come about that India was more of an influence than Pakistan?
Actually, I was in Pakistan, especially when I started learning music. But unfortunately, in Pakistan, you couldn't find a music university. There's no music university, especially in Pakistan, especially in the degree level. But when I went to India, that time the relationship between Afghanistan government and India was very friendly, and they were very close, and they provide money scholarship for Afghan, especially music lovers. So it was the reason which I got a scholarship, and I went to India. Yeah.
I have tons more questions, but I just wanted to make sure that the audience had an opportunity, and we'll have another opportunity at the end of this, and obviously we'll stay around for a few minutes if anybody wants to just talk with us privately. Maybe you don't want to talk in front of the microphone. I understand. Some people are shy. You are with us for this year. I just want to let everybody in the room and online know that next semester we are doing a making lab, what we call a making lab here at the College of Performing Arts at the New School with Dr. Saghar. Over the course of 3 days, it will be a 3-day weekend course, February 28th, March 1st, and March 2nd, which will be an immersive course studying Rag and Tal as they exist in Afghanistan as part of this extended, larger tradition of classical music, Hindustani classical music. And he will impart his knowledge of that. We will be learning those and performing them, singing them, playing them back on various instruments, and students will be able to create their own projects using that exciting few days. But that leads me to ask you, now that you are here with us for a year, what do you hope to happen in your interactions with other musicians, both here at the New School and other people you meet? What do you want to impart to them about your musical traditions?
Yeah, actually, my aim was that actually before to left Afghanistan, when I reached to Germany, so my aim was just to work with musicians from different musical culture, and especially jazz musicians, like to work like collaboration regarding fusion music to each other. And as I did in Germany, I work with a lot of musicians, and even we create a music band, the name of Jugal Band. Yeah, of course, here also I hope, which definitely I meet talented musicians, and we will work together. And I will share my experience regarding Afghanistan traditional classical music and folk music, the musical concept, what is the musical concept in Afghanistan. I will share my experience, and also, of course, it is not end, and I definitely I will learn here something from musicians here. So yeah, I have a lot of hope to do something here. Yeah.
Fantastic. As far as talking about jazz and fusion and improvisatory music, I'm wondering, we didn't touch on this earlier, but with all of these cultures that were in Afghanistan, and then connections with the West through the British who were there, through the Americans who were there, what impact did the music that those people brought with them have on Afghanistan? Has there been jazz in Afghanistan? Has there been rock? What kinds of other forms of music happened there?
Actually, during that 60s and 17, which communism government, they create some branches like in national radio in the name of jazz department and rock department. But as I research, I find that it was just only a name. Yeah. But recently, before to the Taliban entry, some youngsters, they trying to work on rock music, but they was so young. It was just the first step, but they starting to do something regarding rock music. But I'm interested to work with jazz musicians because the way of Afghani or Hindustani classical music, which is based on improvisations, and as I find it, so it will be like interesting and easier to work together. That's why I am working in Germany, and I love to work here also with jazz.
Oh, you will be introduced. We have tremendous jazz players here at the New School who I'm sure are going to be very, very eager to work with you and come up with new kinds of music that will be future traditions in now 21st century musical traditions. Before we end this, Dr. Saghar shared a video with us just so you can see this department and see what was lost. And, we're going to try our best to recreate it here. But thankfully, you informed me before this began that all of these people are alive, so nobody was murdered by the Taliban, thankfully. But this is what once was just as recently as 4 years ago. So. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Saghar and Frank J. Oteri. Thank you so much for bringing us into this incredible tradition and your work. I feel so fortunate to get to have you in our community now and for the rest of the year. And thank you, everybody, both present and online, for joining us today. Thank you.